These are fascinating.
There's a can in there.
Oh, you got some pencils for him? I love it.
You can have one, there's plenty of them.
Brady Meltzer, you ought to still give these out. Hardwood lumber.
Okay.
Are we back on?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
do you catch everything in the view, or?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, well, what I was gonna say, well, I did notice Tony and Karen and Vanessa, they've got an unbelievable selection of photos here. One of the interesting ones, this great big one of Brady, that's obviously professionally done. I believe Chafee was the name of the photographer in Shelbyville back then. I don't know if his name's on there or not, but I was thinking that's who the photographer was. But in any event, we talked about the gun hobby. I think that's how Brady's most well known. But in those days, 1940s, some of our pictures here from the 40s, that was a very common hobby. And it was unbelievably popular. And it's almost hard for me to believe how popular it is, because just by coincidence, just a year ago or so, a fellow who used to be a state representative of ours, Jeff Linder, and former prosecutor, he'd retired to Florida. And there was a judge in Shelbyville named George Tolan, when Jeff was prosecuting, who was left-handed. Jeff's left-handed. Tolan gave Jeff a left-handed muzzleloader, just because he's left-handed, and thought Jeff would like it, and he did. Well, on his way to Florida, without even calling me first, which is the way friends are, he pulls up in front of my house. He has 3 kids. They aren't interested in that kind of thing. He knew I was, to some extent, or I guess more interested than anybody else he knew at that point. And he brought me several things, a little cannon, but that muzzleloader was one, the left-handed muzzleloader. I looked at it, and on the barrel it said Wet Knight. So I knew who made the muzzleloader. It's a fellow named Richard Wet Knight, who's now retired, living in Arizona. I have no idea how old Rich Wet Knight is, but he'd be way older than me. I would guess he has to be in his 80s now. But anyway, the reason I say that, I wrote a story about that. After writing that story, of all the stories that I write, it is unbelievable how many calls I got. And then it was republished in a magazine called Muzzle Blasts, which is the periodical published by the National Rifle Association. And then I ended up with unbelievable calls from old-timers, obviously old people, that had fond memories. But yes, in Shelbyville it was very popular. In Shelby County history, one of our famous inventors, Morris Van Way, who had a shop down on Harrison Street, he also made guns. That's where Rich Wet Knight learned how. Bob Tingle made guns. Brady knew how to make guns. But the making guns and shooting muzzleloaders was just a huge, huge hobby. And that's kind of the way I think that he got mostly well known, just because of so many people. And they'd have shoots here at the farm. When Rich Wet Knight got a hold of me, he sent me some things which I need to provide you that were kind of interesting that I didn't realize, where they had really big shoots out here with hundreds of people. The Lilly Company, somehow they even had a squad that reenacted some Civil War things. And Rich sent me a newspaper article when they were out here at the farm one day with their Civil War cannon. But I think that's how he really got to be known. Now, I segued into that from this big picture of Brady, because this professionally done photograph was done of several men at that same time who were well known in Shelbyville. And I really need to find, if I could, I wish I knew somebody who had all of them. I'd like to have a collection, because at one time, different men in Shelbyville, I say men, maybe some women did too, but had 4 pictures just like this. And I don't know that I can remember who the 4 men were, but I think that it was Brady, Morris Van Way, the inventor, Trotter, who was a famous teacher from Waldron, and also a fellow who made everything. And I think Judge Emmert, who was the Justice of the Supreme Court, he was a circuit court judge here, mayor of Shelbyville, then became Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court. I think those were the four men that for whatever reason, they made big pictures at one time.
I'm gonna jump in one thing and throw something in there. A lot what I've been told, but you say, well, wonder how he got 600 or 700 guns. Well, he got them one at a time, or probably more than one at a time, but there's the thing I thought was fascinating. They said back in the day they had stores and stuff, just like your store, and they'd have something called barrel guns. And what was a barrel gun? It's just a barrel full of guns. They might be 50 cents a piece or something, you might. And then he said he'd go to these sales, because he went to every sale. And he said when they already knew him coming and they have a gun, they set it back. And he wouldn't even give 50 cents unless they had all the accompaniments with it. You know, and that's the story I heard. But now when we segue over to this picture, I think one of the important things, and I'm sure Kris has got more on it than I do, but this little cabin out here, they also built this little cabin. It was built in 1948, and it was reconstructed of logs. All these cabins around here, there's 3 of them, are reconstructed, and a lot of them come from Dearborn County. And the way Brady talked about like I do, for years somebody said I thought it was from Durbin County until I figured out he was saying Dearborn. But anyway, that cabin was known as the Varmints Club. And all these people were probably varmints. And that was what a varmint was. And they were people, the names he's give you, but you take like Charlie Fisher, he was Corn King, and there was a bank president that come here, and then there were just regular people that come here. And what they do, they just sit there and BS and eat, maybe drink a beer. And the sheriff and the postmaster was here, and the sheriff was a Meltzer, and he was about like Andy Griffith in a way. He didn't look like Andy Griffith, but what it was, he acted about it like Andy Griffith, because Kris elaborates, he wants to, I don't know how many people were in the sheriff's department back then. Wasn't very many, probably. And he didn't just run after everybody, probably, did he? He went and got your dad, or your aunt, or whoever he knew would put the heat on you. He didn't have to chase you. He didn't have to punish you either. So, also there's stories about Brady, and I think one you might have reported, I'll throw it in there because we got a picture of the schoolhouse. Brady went to school, and they said that he never went, Philip told me a lot of this, said he never went to school all day. So if he went in the morning, he didn't go, and then if he didn't go in the morning, he might go in the afternoon, but he would hunt from the house to the school. So he took his gun to school, and his mom was a teacher, and what I understand, and Kris could touch up on it, she graduated Butler. And what it is, that's pretty rare, but she taught at another school over here, but she let him quit. He did not make the 6th grade. He might have quit in the beginning, but he quit, and he said, I'm going to go out and make my own way. So later on in life, he bought this school, he made it into a little machine shop, and he welded, he done blacksmith, and it was a lot of things down there, and they had the sawmill, and they had that little thing. So during the war, they commissioned him, the Waldron School down there, to help these farmers fix their tools with welding and blacksmithing and just machine work. So he went there and he taught that during the war, and they said he'd come here sometimes and he'd get his check and he'd wave it in the air and he'd go, government's paying me to teach, and I never finished the 5th grade. So I don't know, you got anything on that?
No, the only thing I was going to add on that, the way you end up getting so well known when you're in an organization like the muzzleloaders, when it's a popular thing at that time, is that it's like any hobby. There are people from all backgrounds enjoy that hobby. So that's how you end up knowing more than the people you would normally know in your own business, whatever that business might be. One thing, since you're in journalism, that we definitely need to find for you is the famous cartoon.
I think it's older.
Because one of the fellows who was around a lot was a fellow by the name of Warner. And you'll see on the cartoon, I think I have it right, I think it's Charles Warner. But in any event, he won a Pulitzer Prize for cartooning. And he drew a cartoon of Brady. And his cartoon of Brady, one time since Brady made guns, Brady had made a gun with a cartoonish long barrel. Obviously, the distance between where you're sitting to shoot and the target, him being a cartoonist, he made it even more cartoonish. The way he drew it, the barrel goes all the way to the target. And Judge Emmert is standing over Brady with a law book saying, you know, that I can't find anything against it, but it must be illegal, basically. And it's kind of a cute cartoon. I don't know, Tommy probably has the original one, or Ron might. One of the other grandkids has the original cartoon.
Don't know, but I think we've seen the cartoon, we had it out the other day. Another thing that there's some things that these people never threw anything away. I guarantee you. I've been here 40 years and have not seen it all. That says something. But anyway, the one thing, and I told them, and they made a quick look, but nobody knows right at the moment, we actually have Brady's report card from 1899. So it must have been the 4th or 5th grade. We actually have that report card where he went to that school. I don't actually remember what the report card said, but I have seen it, and we've probably got it. But it will show up someday, maybe. That's how you preserve things when you can't find.
Yeah.